All right, Jeff Goodman here, Field of 68 after dark. And we were going to wait till the end of the Gonzaga UCLA game, but the end of the game was about 5 minutes after it started. So we're going to go now at the 8-minute timeout. Rob Dauster, Steve Prohm also joining us here and try to break down this game. It shouldn't be all that difficult, guys. It was an absolute rout from start to finish, much like the one I was at a week or so ago in Spokane, where Gonzaga just ran Texas out of the building. Now they do it to a UCLA team that is completely different than the Longhorns. Texas had all these new dudes. UCLA brought back just about everybody. I get that they didn't have Cody Riley, but Steve, this had to surprise you as much as it did me, right?
Yeah, I was shocked. I was looking forward to getting on here about 11:15, my time from that standpoint. Even in the Texas game, I got home, watched the second half of the game. It was a 20-point game, but they kind of willed themselves to get it back to 10. Bolton hit that shot at the end of the half. That was huge. But Texas they kept you around. They kept you around. Tonight it's kind of stayed in that 17, 18, 19, 20 range to where – obviously, Gonzaga was phenomenal, and UCLA was not at its best tonight. And it'll be interesting to see the Duke game on Friday.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to see now is Gonzaga the dominant team, and if they can pound Duke like they pounded Texas and pounded UCLA tonight, Rob, people are going to be ready to give them the national title. I don't buy that, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But what was it tonight? Was it more kind of a little bit fluky that UCLA couldn't make shots early, dug themselves a hole, and then again, Gonzaga with Nembhard just controlling the pace, controlling the tempo? I mean, they were pushing it, getting whatever they wanted out of transition early.
I don't think that it was fluky. I think that this is what Gonzaga is going to be defensively this year. I'm buying it. I don't know if you guys are, and Steve, I'd be curious to hear your opinion on this, but I'm buying what they are defensively. They have the big, I don't know if you would call them athletic, but they're big physical wings that can get out and pressure you on the perimeter. And it takes away kind of what UCLA does best, which is just ISO ball, right? That's basically what they want to do. They want to force switches until they get a matchup that they like, and they want to attack it. It's what they did against Villanova. It's what they did in their tournament run last year. It's kind of how Mick Cronin has built this team a little bit. And they could, like, Gonzaga wouldn't let them have any success with that. And it didn't help that everybody on UCLA was terrified of getting within 8 feet of the rim because Chet Holmgren is back there. And Steve, you can attest to this. The value of having that eraser at the rim, it allows you to take some risks on the perimeter. And it feels like Gonzaga's guys are a little bit more confident knowing that they have that guy back at the rim able to protect everything.
Yeah, I think anytime you have your perimeter, those perimeter guys know somebody like Chet Holmgren. It reminds me of the Beard's great team at Texas Tech, Tariq Owens, when he was spearheading around the basket. You can be so good on the ball. You can pressure. If you get beat, rotation's coming with Chet. And then Timmy is physical. He may not do it with the length and athleticism around the rim, but when you talk about fundamentally sound guys walling up, he does it from that standpoint. But they were terrific. Obviously, I'm all in on this Gonzaga team. The one thing I wrote down just as I watched the game is they look like they are happy for one another. Yes. They look like they're pulling for one another. They share the basketball. Their chemistry is really good. And because, you say it used to be, well, they play in the West Coast Conference. We're going to talk about this a little bit later. The West Coast Conference, when you look at the upper half, is really, really good and has had some phenomenal wins so far. This team has got a chance to make another run like they did last year for sure.
So here's my only question with them coming in was, can they make enough shots from the perimeter, right? Do they have those guys? Because Timmy's not a guy who's going to make them. Chet can make one here or there, but that's probably not going to be his game. And Andrew Nembhard and Rasir Bolton, by the way, it is pronounced Rasir Bolton, which Steve knows. A lot of people got it wrong, including Drew Timme. They tried to teach Drew last week how to pronounce it correctly, and I think he just called him like Raz or something like that. But Bolton's like a career. Both Nembhard and Bolton are not great three-point shooters. They're probably like low to mid-30s, and they've both been shooting the hell out of the ball so far this season. Is it a little fluky? I mean, Nembhard came in, I think 7 of 17. Bolton was 10 of 21 from three. They're making them tonight. I think they're 8 of 18 so far tonight. Is this a team? You see it all the time. Jalen Suggs last year, right, got off to a great start shooting the three, and we're all like, oh, my God, he's the number one pick. Well, then he came down to earth a little bit, and he had no body of work for us to work from. Bolton and Nembhard have a body of work, and they're clearly kind of overachieving relative to what they've done. So, Steve, is this something where you think they'll come down to earth a little bit? Because if they don't make their shots from the perimeter, they're not up 20 early against UCLA tonight.
No, transition threes were big tonight. Chet made a couple. Ra made a couple. Nembhard made one. And so I think when you look at that, especially when you play with such a strong interior presence like Drew Timme, and then you put yourself with other really good perimeter guys, or Bolton, Nembhard, Strother, they come off the bench with Hickman and Salas. I think you surround yourself with those guys. And then Chet, you saw tonight, he made 2 or 3 tonight from 3. When you have that personnel around you, I think it's going to give those guys a little bit more time, a little bit more space to make shots. And then they're playing with great confidence, and shooting is so much about confidence. I think they've continued. I think that's the one thing they've got to do a great job. They've got to maintain threes at a high level consistently. But the thing when we were talking off air is go and look at the shots, contested shots and uncontested shots on both ends of the floor. UCLA and Gonzaga, when you look at percentages, it'll be a stark difference.
Yeah, and to your point,
Holmgren,
you hit 4 in a row to start the game. That's always going to be a little bit fluky, right? And that's kind of what happened. Is Gonzaga came out, punched him in the mouth, hit 4 straight threes, got a little bit of a lead, got it going. And I don't think that you can't fall behind this Gonzaga team. You just can't do it because they're too good offensively. You're never going to be able to come back. And I think that's probably what kind of did UCLA, and especially if they're sick and they weren't feeling well, like when you get punched in the mouth like that, it's kind of hard to bounce back. But I'm less concerned about it because I think that no matter what happens with some of the guards shooting, I think that you're going to have more of an inside-outside game than you've ever had in the past with this group because Chet Holmgren, he can knock down threes. And maybe he's not going to be a guy that's out here shooting 45% and taking 9 a game like Corey Kispert was, but he's going to be good enough where whoever is guarding him has to respect him out on the perimeter. And I think when you look at all the guys that they have, you can have that. And oh, by the way, instead of being a 6'7" shooter like Kispert was, he's a 7'1" monster at the rim that everybody's afraid of.
Yeah,
that's the thing. That's the thing is when you take it in against Chet, you could see it with the UCLA. Everybody, didn't matter whether it was Hawkins, it didn't matter whether it was one of their bigs trying to score. After a few minutes, they all knew that Chet was there because he had blocked a couple of shots. And once that happens, it's in their head. They're thinking about it. They're not just driving, and they should be. They need to drive and get into his body and get him out of the game. And early on, I actually thought they were better without him in the game. But then he started to get comfortable defensively, made a couple of shots, and he started playing like a guy that, even though he's 188 pounds.
Yeah, it's the same thing as shooting, right? Like the threat is not whether or not you make the shot. The impact of spacing and the impact of shooting is the threat of the shot and the way that defenses have to adjust. And it's the same thing. It's not whether or not he actually gets a block. It's the impact that his presence has on the way that you play and the way that the other team reacts to the fact that he's out there, right? And I think that just simply having that presence and the knowledge that he is in the paint changes everything for this group. And to me, like that's the biggest thing. Doug Gottlieb was on here last week, and he said something that really stuck out to me. And it was that Gonzaga has always been one of these teams that will play just enough defense to get the ball back so they can go shoot again, to get the ball back so they can go score again. And this group, based off of what we saw against Texas and based off of what we saw against UCLA, it feels like they care more on that end and they're better on that end. And if they're going to get out there and guard for 40 minutes with the way that they can score, like it almost doesn't matter what their shooting is.
Yeah, I think the pace, though, if you looked at a couple times, UCLA got the ball into Miles Johnson early in the game. I think that the pace of your offense, especially in the half court against Gonzaga, has got to be good because you got to stretch Chet away from the basket, Timme away from the basket, and then ball's got to go quick to go into the post, to go inside, whether you can go back outside and open things up for Juzang and some of those guys. But none of these coaches will talk about this. but it's kind of like when Baylor played in the national title game last year, and Baylor was clear cut the best team in the country last year from A to Z. But this is a back-to-back tonight. And at times early in the first half, UCLA, some tough shots, Bolton, Nemhard, and those guards, man, they were running through UCLA. They were just pushing the pace, easy baskets. Everything was at the paint early in the game outside of those open transition threes.
But you're counting it as a back-to-back because they played Bellarmine? Is that what you're trying to tell me, Steve, that they were tired from playing Bellarmine?
I'm just I know Bellarmine in Central Michigan. Bellarmine won tonight now. Scotty Davenport.
All right. I'll give you that. Give you that. What would you do, Steve? What would you do to attack Chet? Would you send guys and drive at him like they did early? Like, I thought the game plan early for Mick was right. Go at him with Miles Johnson and keep beating him and get his confidence to where he's thinking a little bit too much, whether he can play in this game physically.
Yeah, I think that's what you've got to do. And if you saw, I just think the pace of, and I don't want to get into technicality in this, but when they come off the ball screens, it's got to be quick. Throwback, post up. We got to beat Chet and get an angle on Chet. And we're scoring with angles around the basket off pick and roll instead of back to the basket and having to go over length.
Because you can't. Yeah, you're not getting them that way.
Yep. Gonzaga was terrific, though. I mean, pace offensively, ball movement, made shots, and these teams, obviously they got a chance to meet again. If it happens, it'll be in March. But Gonzaga's got great tests for us in the non-conference. Looking through their schedule, Duke, Texas Tech, Washington's a rivalry game there within the state. And so they'll be tested. And, the West Coast, BYU and those guys, there'll be a lot of good tests in the league for them as well.
So I made a comment earlier after seeing Purdue the last 2 days, a couple of days ago in Mohegan Sun, and Rob was there as well, that I think Purdue could beat Gonzaga right now. And after watching this game, I'm not going to say like they're going to beat Gonzaga, but I think they can play with them. I think it's a better matchup for them than it is for UCLA because they've got an electric guard that is big, strong, athletic in Jaden Ivey, who's great in transition. Okay. They've got two bigs that honestly are going to give Chet Holmgren and Drew Timme some problems. And then they got enough other pieces and they'll guard you. They are tough as shit. That's what Matt Painter's teams do. And they've got a lot of really good players. Again, Isaiah Thompson.
Well, you know what it is? Goodman? I think that Zach Edey is the only player in college basketball that is not going to be affected by Chet Holmgren's length. And if you're not affected by Chet Holmgren's length, then he's got nothing. Zach Edey's going to put him all the way through the basket stanchion.
He will put him so deep at the rim.
I'm not even trying to make a joke. Like Zach Edey literally weighs more than 100 pounds more than Chet Holmgren.
7'4", and he's 7'4". So Chet Holmgren is looking up.
So that is why I think that it makes sense, and it's not just the post touches, right? Like one of the plays that really stood out to me in the first half, and hopefully Chet's okay. He just landed on the back of his head. Yeah, it looks like he's fine. One of the plays that really stood out to me was the first drive that Chet had where he grabbed a rebound, he went the length of the court and he drove in and he laid the ball in. And everyone was like, oh, look at that move by Chet. And what I saw was Drew Timme sealing off two big guys to give Chet that layup at the rim, right? The value of having Zach Edey is that he can just get in the way of Chet and make it so that you don't have that weak side shot blocker coming in to try to get you. The same thing with Trevion Williams. Like those dudes are hard to get around.
How is Timme going to guard Trevion Williams? Now I know how is Trevion Williams going to guard Timme, but honestly, Timmy's going to be absolutely destroyed if Trevion Williams gets the ball in the post against him. He is.
Yeah, so is Zach Edey's going to do the same thing. Like it's very difficult matchups for him, and that's part of the reason why I like that for Purdue. The other part is that it's the stuff that they run, right? Like they get so much. You can be let's just assume, okay? Let's just assume that Gonzaga is a great defensive team. Not good. Let's just call them great. Let's just pretend that they are, for argument's sake. The thing about Matt Painter's sets and what he runs is you can get so many shots just out of the stuff that they run. You don't even have to worry about going one-on-one. You don't have to worry about any of that. It's the staggers and the down screens and all of the counters. Like you talk about Isaiah Thompson, they had one where a couple different times they set a back screen for Edey with Thompson and got Edey like cutting into the post. That game-winning shot they hit, they slipped that back screen. They just had Thompson pop out and hit a wide open three. And that's how they got that last one, because both the defenders went with Edey. So it's just those little things like that. They can get so much out of their offense. It doesn't matter how good you are defensively.
Yeah.
Steve, you buying Purdue?
Yeah, I'm all in. I've had a chance, this year's been great for me just to go around and watch different practices and see teams, and played Matt's team in 2017, the NCAA tournament. And, the second half, we ended up having to go 5 out because they had Haas and Swan again. We just put Burton at the 5 and went small just to try to be able to score and kind of go matchup game against them. So I went up there and watched them in September. And talking to Matt, I know he's got about 6 or 7 guys back that average double figures. That's unheard of. He's got an older team. Edey and Williams are huge up front. Jaden Ivey. He's got shooters and then solid point guard play. I'm all in on Purdue. You saw it this weekend. You beat North Carolina. You beat Villanova. And I didn't see the Villanova game, but if I heard right, they were down 10 and then came back and beat Villanova. That's impressive in itself, but they got the toughness to stay with Gonzaga. Rob touched on their half-court execution and their ability to get the ball to Williams and Edey in spots that they can score is huge. That's what they're about. And then we talked about this off air, transition defense, jamming the point guard early in transition, early point of pickup. That's a Matt Painter staple. And so be a heck of a game. But Purdue is a team I would be all in on and think they would give Gonzaga a great, great game.
Kansas, you think they're clear like 3 now? I mean, I think it's, again, for me, it's Gonzaga 1, Purdue 2. And I still think Kansas has got a little bit of a ways to go. They can get there when they integrate Remy Martin and he kind of gets comfortable. And it'll probably take a little bit longer for Bill Self to break him down and then bring him back, is my guess. But are we putting Kansas there yet?
I don't think that I would quite yet, just because I think they can get there, and I think they deserve to be in that like tier 1 category. However we phrase it, they're definitely top 5 to me. I need to see Remy Martin continue to be this guy that will let the game come to him and make the plays down the stretch, and I need to continue to see Ochai Agbaji play the way that he played in those first 2 games of the season.
Been good, man. He's kept it going. He has kept it going, and confidence is everything for Agbaji. And if he can have confidence, that means he's putting it on the floor a little bit, and that makes them a much more well-rounded team. And having a guy that's he's never going to be an alpha dog, but he can be a go-to guy. If he can be that guy, that's, I think, what Kansas needs.
Honestly,
Steve.
As weird as this sounds, I think that Kansas would have an easier time with Gonzaga than they would with Purdue. I think they match up a little bit better, just because, I mean, we talked about this on the live stream, Steve. The way that Bill can kind of scheme post touches and post seals for McCormick could be a very easy way. Well, I don't want to say easy, but an effective way at getting Chet Holmgren in foul trouble.
Yeah, and then, Kansas, we haven't seen them yet. Now they add Wilson back. I believe it. Will he play against North Texas on Thursday? North Texas is good. That won't be a runaway game, I don't think, by any means. But the one thing about Self's teams, too, it's like, are you ready to put them there right now? His teams always get better and better and better and better as the season goes on. But Agbaji's been terrific. McCormick is big up front. Mitch Lightfoot is their backup 5, who's been in the league now 6 years and is very, very solid. But I like that Kansas team a lot. And once they get Wilson back in the fold, I think this team's just going to continue to grow and grow. It'll be interesting to see how they do down in Orlando when you look at that field. Belmont, Drake, Miami, Dayton, there's a couple like that. So I don't know where their big test will come from down there if I'm looking at the bracket right.
So the final 83-63. Gonzaga, it was pretty much that way throughout. I felt like it was pretty much 20 after the first 10 minutes all the way through. UCLA never made it a game. Chet Holmgren's final line, 15 points, 28 minutes, 6 for 8 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, 6 rebounds. I'm not sure how many blocks he had, but he probably altered about 10 shots at least. All right, so Chet.
I don't know how he only got credit for 4 blocks.
Yeah, it seemed like he had more than that.
So, all right,
Chet.
Before we move on to what I know you're about to ask,
yeah.
Can we just talk about Andrew Nembhard? Because we're
going to get there. We're going to get to Nembhard. We got a little bit of a deal here. How we're going to, if you were the host, you would be able to determine which way we're going to go and when, but you deferred on being the host tonight. So instead, you're going to have to wait to talk about Andrew Nembhard a little bit more. So we're going to go into Friday night's matchup for a minute here, and the 1-to-1 or the 1 versus 2 matchup between Chet Holmgren and Paolo Banchero. And listen, I don't even know who I would take right now if I have the number 1 overall pick. I really don't, because you can't judge Chet Holmgren at 188 pounds. He's not going to play in the NBA at 188. And again, you look at what he can do from a skill level, shooting the ball from the perimeter, what he can do altering shots. And then you look at Banchero. And again, I've compared him to a young Chris Webber. I think he's that good. I think he's skilled, he's strong, he's athletic, he's tough. And Holmgren's tough too. He just, again, you look at him and you're saying he's frail. Who would you take right now, Steve Prohm? If gun to your head, you have the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, who are you taking?
Probably Banchero, today, just from, now watching Chet tonight, up close, I'd probably go back to the draft room, and really start kind of reevaluate and make sure, I could tell you a lot better after Friday night. But if I was going right now in a small sample size, I would say Banchero. But Chet, obviously, it's one that you could look back on and be like, golly, with the first pick. And, it happened so many times. We let him get away. You've got the Darko Milicic story instead of Carmelo Anthony. I mean, you go on and on.
What did you just call Chet Holmgren Darko Milicic? Is that? Do we just
no.
Did you just say that?
No. I'm just saying you can skip on guys. I probably said it the reverse way. You can skip on a guy. Hey, we took Sam Bowie. We missed on So where, you just don't know. But Chet tonight was terrific, and so it give you some things to think about. But I don't know, it'd be tough.
I really like Chet as a prospect. It's the skinny frame for me, and like you see him on TV right now. His shoulders are just so thin. This isn't like Anthony Davis, where Anthony Davis had really broad shoulders. This isn't even like Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley was 215, 220 pounds last year. That's 30 pounds heavier than what Chet is. I thought that Evan Mobley was a more well-rounded and impactful all-around defender. Like, he had all of the rim protection stuff that comes with Chet. He was also good enough to be able to sit in a stance and go out and guard somebody on the perimeter at an elite level. And he was also, like I said, he had 30 extra pounds. Those 30 pounds matter when you're dealing with guys in the NBA. He wasn't quite as skilled offensively, but like I do sometimes wonder how much that's going to translate. But I think Chet's a very, very, very good prospect. I would take him number 2 in the draft. That's not a diss. I would take Paolo number 1 over him. I just think it's the physicality, the size. I can see him translating defensively. I think he's a little bit of a better passer. I do believe in the jump shot and that it's going to come around. He's awesome. I'm taking the 6'10", 250-pound guy that runs ball screens.
Yeah, the thing about Chet that always gives him a chance, and he's getting interviewed right now. He has a chip on his shoulder, and he has a swagger, because everybody's talked about size, strength for so long, and he's playing on the number 1 team in the country and just had 15, 6, and 4 blocks and a 20-point win over the number 2 team in the country. And so, and then you got to draft for need
to. You know what else it is? He's a big, goofy-looking, skinny white dude named Chet playing at the highest level of basketball. People are coming for that dude every single time that he steps on his court his entire life. Like, people come at it. He's used to it. He's expecting it. He's ready for it. And if he's gotten to this point at this level, like there's toughness there. There's heart there. The thing that always stands out to me is
188.
saying this is it's all right here in the game against Amani Bates when he was in high school. I really, really like him. I would take Powell number 1 over him.
It goes back to two: skill and IQ. Skill and IQ, you can play right away. I don't care if you're 185 or 225. If you got skill and basketball IQ, which he has both, then you can make an impact right away. Whether it's 1, whether it's 2, it depends on how long you may want to wait on somebody. But, from that standpoint, or what your needs are. But skill and IQ, I think, get you on the floor at any level right away.
All right, it is time to talk about the WCC boys because Gonzaga continues to mow down its opponents. Tonight we had St. Mary's and Randy Bennett beating Oregon on a neutral court a day after they beat Notre Dame, which is Notre Dame's probably a fringe NCAA tournament team. BYU has beaten Oregon and Portland, San Diego State. San Francisco has beaten Nevada and Davidson. Santa Clara has beaten Stanford, Nevada, and TCU. I think now they're like 27-0, those 5 teams together. And Rob Dauster made a statement the other day that seemed preposterous, Steve. Seemed absolutely ridiculous when he said the top half or the top 5 of the WCC is better than the top 5 in the ACC. I'm a believer now. I'm ready to be, and I never agree with Dauster. It pains me, but I'm there. I'm agreeing with Rob. I think the WCC, definitely the top 3. I think you put up against the ACC's top 3, and I'm taking them.
Yeah, you should. It's the smart thing to do. Look,
Steve's speechless.
BYU is legit. I don't think that you can look at what they've done so far this year and say anything other than that's a top 25 basketball team, right? I think St. Mary's, you just trust Randy Bennett, you trust Tommy Kuzi, you kind of trust what that system is to be able to get enough wins to at least put themselves in a position where it's okay, we have to have a conversation about whether or not this is an at-large team. When they get Wisconsin tomorrow, and we'll get to that in a little bit, that's going to go a long way in kind of determining what I think the ceiling for a St. Mary's team could be this year. When it comes to Santa Clara, even someone like a San Francisco, it's all about being able to pick up enough wins in non-conference where you can get those computer numbers up, right? That's the thing about it, is that when you're in the WCC, what kills you is that you play a lot of teams like the Portlands and the Pacifics and the Pepperdines that are going to be in the 200s. When it comes to the net and when it comes to KenPom, when it comes to all these computer rankings. So if you could start building up enough of a resume at this point in the season, doing all of this stuff in the non-conference that they've been doing so far, getting all of these wins against power conference opponents, that is going to be so important for them long-term. I want to see a 4-bid WCC. Can we make this Can we make this a thing? I want to see a 4-bid WCC. I think that St. Mary's is going to be good. If they beat Wisconsin, St. Mary's, I think is probably going to get an at-large bid. BYU is going to get an at-large bid. I feel comfortable saying that right now. Gonzaga is probably going to get an at-large bid to the tournament. That means San Francisco and Santa Clara, it's on you guys. You got to find a way to make this happen. Win enough games in conference. Go win the WCC tournament. Hell, I might ask Mark Few just to tank the tournament. Let's get a 4-bid WCC. Let's make it happen. Don't show up. Don't play. Say you had positive tests. Don't do it. Let's get a 4-bid WCC. We need this to happen.
Well, St. Mary's can definitely make their case. I mean, you go Notre Dame, Oregon, and then Wisconsin tomorrow, man. Boy, they've got 3 in the bank. And then looking ahead at their schedule, they got to go to Utah State, they got to go to Colorado State, they got a chance with San Diego State at home. So they definitely can put themselves in great position. Gonzaga, we already know they're going to be a number 1 seed, in no question. BYU, they're probably got a great head start with the win against Oregon. But even they've got sneaky good wins. Could beat Cleveland State. They beat San Diego State. They got to go to Utah. But the two, like you said, man, it's San Francisco and Santa Clara. Can they really be? And I know San Francisco's best wins right now, Davidson, Nevada, though Nevada had a great win tonight. And obviously Steve's got a good team out there. They got to go to Arizona State. They got to get that one. And then Santa Clara, they're off to a great start. They got good name wins, Stanford, TCU, Nevada. They got to go to Cal. But those are ones They got to beat BYU. They got to split with BYU. Got to split with Gonzaga. They got to split with St. Mary's. And if they do that, then they're going to have a legit chance if they take care of the non-conference.
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key, is somehow getting a win against, or Gonzaga or BYU and beating St. Mary's. That enables San Francisco or Santa Clara that aren't going to probably get the huge resume wins in the non-conference, but can do enough to kind of get on the bubble a little bit. That puts you over the top.
You know what else is really going to help them? The ACC, once you get past Duke, like there's not a lot there that is really all that impressive. The Big Ten, once you get past Purdue, like who has really been all that? Who's the second best team in the Big Ten right now? Is it Ohio State, who almost got beat by Akron? Is it Wisconsin? Like, are we calling it Wisconsin now? Is it Illinois? Like who we just saw get embarrassed by Cincinnati? Like it's there are going to be a lot of bids. The AAC looks like it might be like a 1 or 2 bid league this year, right? Probably 2 bid. Memphis and Houston. I blanked on Memphis actually.
They'll both. A10's one.
The Mountain West is one. The A10 is like there are a lot of bids available. You just got to go get it done. Like
the thing I wrote down, and when we were prepping for West Coast Conference, is this league better than the Mountain West, the A10, the American, and the Missouri Valley?
Yes, combined.
Better than them all when you look at head to head, are they better than those 4 leagues? Because if they're better than those 4 leagues, then they're going to get probably at least 3, a possible 4, 5.
But again, would have to get right. Those fourth and fifth teams have to knock off, because you're going to have Gonzaga and BYU that could be. Listen, BYU. Remember a couple of years ago when the tournament got scrapped, BYU is a team that we thought had a chance. They were in the top 10 at one point. Yeah. I don't know if they were at the end there, but they were at the top 10. Could they be in the top 10 again and having 2 teams, among the elite, and then St. Mary's maybe being a top 25-ish? Then again, it just gives you a lot more juice if San Fran or Santa Clara are going a little bit of a run and beat a couple of those teams.
And I know that the rankings aren't supposed to help, right? Like it's not supposed to factor in. But every single person in those NCAA selection committee rooms are humans, right? And if they are looking at something where it says St. Mary's top 25, that next to their number, every time they watch them play, they number 25 next to them, it's going to influence you. There's no way around that. Same thing if you see BYU with like a number 10 next to them. Yeah. That's going to impact the way that you kind of look at it, the way that you think about it. And it's unavoidable. It's natural. It's human. It's the cognitive stuff that happens that goes into the selection of these rooms, which is why it's so crazy that we put all of this stock into people putting together these brackets. And it's just it's like 10 guys like us just being like, hey, you know what? I think I like this. I'm going to value this win more than this win, right? That's all it is when they're in there. I like this more than this. That's how teams succeeded.
All right. So Andrew Nembhard, we'll get to him because you wanted to earlier, and I won't completely ignore you. He had 24 points tonight, 9 of 13 from the field, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 3 turnovers, and he played all 40 minutes in a 20-point blowout. Thanks, Mark Few. First of all, get him off the floor. Like, we can't see the kid Arlauskas, my boy from Lithuania. We can't get him a little bit of run at the end of the game. I mean, come on.
Got to get your man turn.
Ridiculous. And that's Timmy's boy. By the way, it was a package deal. It was almost, from what I was told, it was like Drew Timmy would come back if Arlauskas was coming back as well. So that was part of the deal there. But Nembhard has established himself as, maybe as underrated a point guard as there is in the country right now. Everybody was talking about Timmy and Holmgren, but the key to this team has been Andrew Nembhard so far because of his ability to make the right decisions, run the team. He can finish in transition. He can play in the half court. He can make a shot. There's not much he can't do. He's actually done a good job defensively, smart, cerebral, all of it. So I ask you guys to come up with, is there a better point guard? Is there a point guard you would take right now, Steve, over Andrew Nembhard?
Not today. I've got my top 3, the guys that I think are very good and right up there with top point guards in the country. But after watching tonight and really sitting down and watching Nembhard, and they're the best team in the country. He's their point guard. Point guard's job, it's, hey, do you win? Can you impact winning? Do you make people better? And then Nembhard, he's, with Chet and Timmy, they make up probably the best front court in the country. So you're looking at probably the best front court with, to me right now, no questions asked, the best point guard in the country. And you hear Mark Few just talk about him. He raves about him. Obviously raves about Timmy being the backbone and the toughness and the glue of that team. And the great thing, to mention about Chet is he gets to kind of learn under Timmy. You know what I mean? The lay of the land. And I think that's so huge for a freshman that has so many expectations to meet. But Nembhard is number one. And if you want 2 or 3, I'll shoot those out.
Yeah,
and you come
sure.
back to me. I would say number 2, and this is just I got a chance to watch him in practice, and it's about winning. I think Quinterly. I think Javon Quinterly. I love him at Alabama. And that's the team I missed, talking about that bracket, that Kansas, Alabama, Sunday. If they meet up in the Orlando championship, that's going to be a heck of a basketball game.
Oh, yeah.
And then number 3, you could go a lot of different ways. I know Rob's probably saying, where's Akinjo? And he could be in there. But it's about winning. It's about impact. I would say Colin Gillespie. I just love him. I love what he's about, and I love Villanova basketball.
Yeah, so I think the top 2 has to be Gillespie and Andrew Nembhard.
Yeah, agreed.
Right now, I think the top 2. I also think that says a lot about the state of guards and guard playing college basketball right now. I don't think either of those 2 guys are like supremely talented, but they're just like good, smart, heady players that aren't going to beat you, that are going to let the game come in, that are going to make sure that you're running what you're supposed to run. They're the quintessential cliche coach on the floor doing all that kind of stuff too. So the thing that really stood out to me though was I tweeted out the question, is Andrew Nembhard the best point guard in the country? And someone hit me back with, he's averaging 7 points a game, because look at who they're playing and look at the scores of the game. Like, he doesn't have to do more than that. He's capable of it. He just went up against the number 2 team in the country and had 25, 6, and 5.
Yep. Right.
So he can get it. He can make it happen, but he doesn't need to. And he knows he doesn't need to. And he'll just let everyone else beat him. He'll take it. Yeah. He'll take his off nights when he can get his off nights. He's an old man at this point. He's a 5th-year senior.
Yeah, I think that's a good point too, because that, they're 5 or 6-0 now. They've had obviously 2 huge tests with Texas and UCLA. The other teams they've beat convincingly. But when we talked about, hey, look up who you think the best point guards, and some you're doing it off feel and watching them. But when I'm looking at their stats, I'm not looking at points per game first, though I love point guards who can score. My first thing was assist to turnover ratio. Mm-hmm. Do you take care of the ball? Do you value the ball? Are we getting good shots every time? And then what's your assist rate? And that's what I'm looking at first. Now the points will come, field goal percentage, things like that, but assist to turnover, and do you win? And
you had 2 of the best. I mean, you had 2 of the best in the last, 6-7 years in the country in terms of taking care of the ball.
Yeah, Monte Morris is the best I've ever, had, led to college basketball 3 out of 4 years, assist to turnover ratio. The year he didn't lead it, he was number 2. There's a great quote. Flip Saunders said, "Point guards come from heaven. Great point guards come from heaven." And that's one thing I've been blessed. I had Isaiah Cannon, Cameron Payne, Monte Morris, Tyrese Halliburton, and one kid that's overseas, Nick Weiler-Babb, who I think is terrific as well.
So who's your third, Rob?
I mean, there's like 9 different guys that you can go with.
Pick a third.
I'm still going to lean. I love Quinterly. I think that he is part of why he's so good right now is the fit within the system, as opposed to just like being the outright like best dude, if that makes sense. I'm still going to go with Akinjo at number 3, because I think that Baylor's won a bunch of games in blowouts, and like kind of think that they still have a chance to go out and win this thing. Like, I don't want to eliminate them from the conversation of the best team in college basketball at this point. Same thing with Duke, and hopefully we can come back to that, because I think that Duke might have a real chance to hang with Gonzaga on Friday. But I'm gonna stick with Akinjo. He just, if you look at what that Baylor team is doing too good, I know Stanford stinks, but they beat Stanford by 40.
Yeah, 40.
They beat a high major team by 40.
Yeah.
How often do high major teams lose by 40?
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, this Baylor team, I can't wait to see them. I mean, they've got some games coming up. They haven't played much yet, but they got the second half of their non-conference schedule is loaded. So we're going to see how good Kendall Brown and Akinjo and Matthew Meyer, how good these guys are this year without, Davion Mitchell and some of those other dudes. I'm going same 1-2. I mean, I don't think you can go any other way other than Andrew Nembhard and Gillespie. Am I allowed to put Ivy at the point? Because I just want to put him at the point, man, and let him go after watching him this past week. I know Matt Painter won't do that. And Dauster and I kind of talked to him a little bit about that, Steve. And he said in transition, he could do it. But in the half court, he's not ready to play the point yet. So I'm going to go with another guy similar to Nembhard and Gillespie. He's not flashy. He just wins. And he's done it under the radar for now 3+ years. And that's Kyle Lofton at St. Bonaventure. He doesn't shoot it great, but he makes the right decisions. He's an intangible. The same things you could say about Andrew Nembhard and Colin Gillespie, you could say about Lofton. And right now, St. Bonaventure, top 20 team. And that's what it's all about for me. I'm picking a point guard on a top 20 team. I'm not going beyond that. You've got to be a winning point guard. That's the biggest thing. But I'll tell you what, Rob mentioned it, and he's right. You go down the line this year. This is the weakest group of point guards I've ever seen in all my years of covering college basketball, Steven. It's not even close.
Did you guys just hear that?
It's true.
What did you say? Say it again, Goodman. Say it again. Say it again for the people listening at home that missed it.
Rob is right. Okay.
There we go.
Well, you've said that twice tonight.
You said
that twice tonight, Jeff.
Twice tonight.
It's brutal. It's really painful to do, Steve, but sometimes you just gotta admit it and try to move on quickly. That's the biggest thing. Duke-Gonzaga, Friday night. It's the one that, again, we're going to be talking about the next few days in college basketball, because now people are going to give Gonzaga the national title. They are. They're going to give it to them. Duke looked really good, Champions Classic. They haven't really been tested a whole lot since. But they got Banchero. It's Banchero, by the way, Steve, just for future reference. I screwed it up too. I screwed it up with Paolo last year. So just want to make sure you get it right. It's Banchero, and he is a stud, but I worry about, Duke's point guard situation. I really do. And that's the area that I think, as long as Gonzaga doesn't go out and have too much fun in Vegas, I think they're going to be fine. But if they're out there tonight hitting the strip, and, who knows with Drew Timme, what he's doing with the stash out there on the strip. And, he might get an NIL deal tonight in Vegas. Who knows?
Oh,
yeah.
Don't out here insinuating that these guys are pulling a Jeff Goodman and staying out at 4 a.m. at the craps table slamming bourbons. All right.
Yeah. That team looks like they'll be dialed in.
Actually, if we're being honest, UCLA kind of played tonight like they were at the craps tables until 4 a.m. slamming bourbon. So
yeah, very true.
Yeah, I would. If I was picking, I would. You just can't not take Gonzaga. I mean, I don't know what Timme finished tonight. With tonight.
18 and 8, and it was quiet.
Yeah, quiet. That's what I'm saying. He was quiet tonight, right? But Chet came alive, because that was the big thing. Hey, we haven't seen Chet against Texas. He was okay. He didn't do this. Tonight he responded. Their guards responded tonight. Duke will get out there plenty of time. They'll be rested. Everybody will feel good. Be an unbelievable game. Duke, physicality on the perimeter, will be a test. But I like Gonzaga in a really, really good game. Hopefully it's not like this tonight either way.
All right, so let me ask you this then. There's no line up right now at Bet Rivers for this game. That's probably not going to get here until some point on Thursday night. The college basketball lines don't come out until then. But right now at KenPom, Duke is a 6-point underdog, the same thing that UCLA was on KenPom's projections. And I'm just curious, are you laying the points with Gonzaga? Or you think they're going to run away from Duke?
I don't think it'll be a runaway. Gonzaga was phenomenal tonight. I'm still sticking with Gonzaga as the pick, but I would think it's a really, really competitive and really good game. And Gonzaga gets tested going to the last immediate timeout tonight, Friday night for sure. I believe it's Friday night. But the over-under probably be about 160. I would gather, because these teams
156, and it was 156 in this one, and And some of us may have lost the under on.
But they both can really, really score. You know that for sure.
Yeah, listen, I expect it. It's not going to be like we saw tonight. That's for damn sure. It's going to be competitive. Texas, again, both games, think about it. I mean, tonight jumped out on, right? I mean, Gonzaga jumped out on Texas. They jumped out on them tonight. I want to see if Duke plays with them. What's it going to be like for this Gonzaga team with a little bit of game pressure, because they haven't faced any of it in their two big matchups. And, Vegas, I think it'll be probably a split crowd between Duke and Gonzaga. Tonight it was a pro-Zags crowd, which is to be expected. But I think Duke will have their share of fans. So, all right, well, listen.
Hold on. I think that Duke has a very real chance to win this. Yeah. There's a couple reasons why. One, Mark Williams he hasn't had the greatest start to the season, but like he's big and he's physical and he's 7'1", and he's going, at the very least, he's going to be better than Miles Johnson when it comes to getting the ball in the paint and actually making something happen. I think there's a real world where he might be able to actually get Chet into foul trouble. And like, look, he hasn't really done much, but the last 3 games he's averaging 14 points per game. So it looks like he's starting to figure it out a little bit. He's a big one. Paolo obviously is a guy that can be a difference maker. They have Theo John as their third big off the bench, which, I mean, when you could bring in a former all Big East defensive player as a 5th-year senior that is willing to come off the bench, that is going to change what you could be defensively, that's huge. AJ Griffin is just starting to find his rhythm a little bit. Trevor Keels, the insane performance he had in the Garden, he hasn't really backed that up. It might be a little bit of a Tyrese Maxey situation, but I mean, he is a dude that we've seen kind of be able to take over a game like that. And maybe he's just someone that rises to the occasion in a moment like that. This is going to be a moment like that. I think that Duke matches up really well with him. Now, I thought the UCLA matched up really well with him too, and that did not go all that well. But I think that there's going to be a little bit. I would be very surprised to see Duke come out as flat as UCLA did in a game like this and in a moment like this.
All right. Thanks to Bet Rivers. Thanks to everybody for joining us. As usual, tomorrow night, John Fana, Randolph Childress, Terrence Oglesby will join us at the regular time at 11 o'clock Eastern. And tip of the cap to the Zags.